Welcome back to CBS Mornings. We are continuing our coverage of the indictment of former President Donald Trump. Now, you know the exact charges have yet to be announced, but we do know they're in connection with money paid to adult film star, that's Stormy Daniels, ahead of the 2016 election. Donald Trump is vowing to fight these charges, and he's got the support of many, many prominent Republicans. For some political reaction to this, we're joined by Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning.
It's nice to have you at the table again. As we've been saying all morning, uncharted territory, unprecedented motions. What was your reaction when you heard?
That no one is above the law, not even a former president of the United States. You know, this is a very sober time for our country, a real moment in history. And yet, I think the most important part of this is to say that a foundational piece of our democracy is holding. That it is possible to have an independent investigation, to go wherever the facts lead, and then to follow the process through. And that's going to mean to follow it all the way through, including assuming there is an arrest. If there's a trial, Donald Trump can plead not guilty. He can bring whatever evidence he wants.
But, Senator, we know this in school. We're always taught no one is above the law. Why are no Republicans saying this? We hear Lindsey Graham saying this is legal voodoo, political persecution, political hatred, that this is all about a political witch hunt. Why are there no Republicans, not one, saying that no one is above the law, that this is all about politics? It's hard not to see it. It's hard not to see a political lens on this, is it not?
I can't answer for the Republicans. I can only answer for myself. And for myself, it's about backing off and letting the system work. Trust in the process. There is no reason to believe there's been anything other than an independent investigation. It's walked through all the steps. It is a grand jury, according to the evidence released, that has voted independently. And we will go forward with that process. And that process offers plenty of opportunity for Donald Trump or anyone else accused of a crime to bring forward whatever evidence they want, to use whatever part of the legal system they want. But we follow the law for everyone because it's foundational in our democracy.
And I remember sitting in class hearing this.
Foundational.
I remember
Everybody gets treated the same.
But this is the thing that's so concerning. Donald Trump is calling for, in his words, death and destruction. He's calling for his allies to rally behind him. He's asking people to please speak up, please show out. Are you worried about violence in the streets?
It's dangerous rhetoric, Gayle.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about that.
It is dangerous, and violence is never the answer. This is part of the reason we have a court system, so that we don't resolve these things.
But are you worried about it? Are you worried about it?
I always worry about violence. But again, I think that's why it's important for as many people as possible to take a deep breath, to be calm, to step back and say, this is one more step in the legal process. Donald Trump is going to have plenty of opportunities to make his case in open court, and the prosecution will have the same opportunity. Let the process go forward. No one is above the law.
So, Senator, let me get your thoughts on some other issues that are bubbling under the surface here. Many Americans are still worried about the banking system right now. What do you want to see happen so that we don't see another bank collapse? Not perhaps now, but in the future.
Exactly the right question. What's the go forward? But to get the go forward right, you got to take just a little look backwards. So remember, big bank crash in 2008 nearly brought down the worldwide economy. We put in place very strong banking laws to make sure that doesn't happen again. And it didn't. But those multi-billion-dollar banks, they didn't like it. So they came to Washington, including the CEO of Silicon Valley Bank. Starting in 2016, they start lobbying, weaken the regulations on us. Donald Trump ran for president, telling those multi-billion-dollar banks that if he got elected, he would weaken the regulations. He got elected, and he put in anti-regulators in those spots. He then went to Congress and said, weaken the laws that demand tougher regulations. And Congress, with the help from both parties, opened that door. Then Jerome Powell, head of the Fed, used that and mowed down literally dozens of regulations.
But, Senator, even when there are regulations in place, the San Francisco Fed did call attention to what was going on at Silicon Valley Bank, and nothing was done.
Yes.
So the question is, with the regulations that are in place, should there be some teeth Should there be some accountability?
So you are exactly right. It takes regulators who keep their eye on the ball. And the problem we've got is starting with that change in legislation in 2018, regulators took their eye off the ball. Jerome Powell, head of the Fed, encouraged them to do that.
Does he now have to do a bit of an about face, do you think?
He needs to do a 180-degree about face. Having been the guy who mowed down the regulations, he now needs to be the guy, because he's the one in this job, to start standing those regulations back up.
Do you have confidence in the banking system? I hear a lot of people saying, I'm going to take my money, put it in a shoebox, and go home.
So, look, for most depositors, there's protection. They shouldn't have to worry about this. But overall, back to your question, we need to make sure that we have a banking system that we can rely on over the long arc.
Right.
And that the federal government is not called in effectively to backstop these banks. The only way we're going to make that happen is if we make banking boring again. I have a bill right now for clawbacks with Senator Josh Hawley, Senator Braun, Senator Cortez Masto,
So
bipartisan.
Yeah, bipartisan.
Bipartisan. And what it says is you're the CEO of a big bank. You give yourself a bunch of big bonuses and stock options and then blow your bank up because you took on the risks. You're going to have to give all that back.
Right.
The federal government
Right.
can claw that back. The idea here is if you're thinking about making big money, don't go into banking.
Right.
Go somewhere else.
Right. Senator, we want to get your thoughts on a topic that we've covered quite a bit here on the show, and that's the banning of TikTok. Now, some progressive lawmakers have said that this wouldn't actually address the issue of data privacy. Have you seen evidence of TikTok being a threat to our national security?
So I look at this a little differently. I think the question of privacy of our data through social media, through just tracking us on our phones, is something that we should be very concerned about. But it's not enough just to say this is a TikTok-only problem. This is a problem all the way across in terms of the data that are being collected.
Okay, so are we casting a wide enough net?
I want that we are not casting a wide enough net. I want to see a wider net on the privacy issues. I also think on the question of China, because it is different with China here. But China has they've got apps out there, they've got social media, they've got other pieces. So we
And American tech companies can sell data.
Bingo.
So should TikTok not be banned?
So the way I see it is if we're going to look into the question of data privacy, and we should, I've got some very serious concerns about this, we need to cast a broad enough net. We cannot pretend that if we can focus in on one company, that we're all done and have fixed this
Can you
problem.
give a short answer to the question about guns? Once again, the horrible shooting in Nashville. I know it's not an easy answer, but will something change this time? Are your Republican colleagues saying something differently behind the scenes about let's make changes in gun laws?
I just can't tell you how frustrating this is. Our children die because there are Republicans in Congress who continue to insist that we can't put just basic safety measures in place.
So you don't see any behind-the-scenes conversation that makes you optimistic or hopeful that there will be changes?
Can I just do one? In Massachusetts, we have tougher gun laws. If the laws that we have in Massachusetts were the laws all across this country, independent studies show we would reduce deaths from gun violence by about 70%. These are the lives of our children, our neighbors, our friends, and we just can't get the
But that's why it's
Republicans on
frustrating.
board.
People know what to do.
Exactly.
Unfortunately,
nothing ever changes.
We'll probably be having this conversation again.
Yep.
Senator Warren, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.